Tonight on Strange But True. A motorist drives down the A3 freeway in England. She sees a vehicle careen off the road, so she calls police and reports it. But when the authorities arrive, the accident scene that they find has been there for several months. Jackie Gleason, comedian and actor. Did the former President Nixon take him on a tour and show him alien bodies? Gleason's ex-wife says that he did. And then a woman sits down to watch TV for 42 years. 3 incredible stories that are strange but true. Surrey, England, 2002. A motorist driving along the A3 freeway in Surrey, England, calls police and reports seeing another vehicle veer off the roadway and plunge down a heavily overgrown embankment. She's not alone. Soon, the department's switchboard lights up with other frantic witnesses, also reporting a driver running his car off the same roadway. Approximately 100 yards from a turn to an emergency access road. Several of the witnesses indicate that the vehicle should be easy to spot in the darkness because the headlights were on. Police were immediately dispatched to the scene, but were unable to locate any victim or any evidence at all that a crash had taken place where the witnesses reported. There were no skid marks on the roadway. There was no flattened vegetation indicating the path of a vehicle. No sign of car lights in the darkness. Absolutely nothing. The officers left the scene and returned the next day to investigate in the light of day. Then, an officer spotted something. Almost completely hidden underneath the branches, leaves, and the underbrush was a maroon Vauxhall Astra. The vehicle was nose down into a ditch and was nearly hidden from view. When officers made their way down to the car, they found no one inside. It was badly damaged, rusted, and it appeared that the vehicle had been there for some time. The switch to the headlights was in the on position, but the battery had long been drained. Further investigation revealed a grisly discovery. Not far from the wreck, officers found a skeleton. This vehicle had not crashed recently. In fact, it lay undiscovered for 5 months. Several UK newspapers reported the ghostly sighting, creating a frenzy in the national press. Using dental records, authorities later identified the remains to be those of Christopher Chandler. Police had been looking for Chandler since July to arrest him for his part in a robbery. Around the same time, his family reported him missing, a full 5 months prior to the discovery of his remains. It is believed that Chandler survived the crash, but died later while trying to climb the embankment for help. Did witnesses that swear they seen a car with its headlights on plunge down the embankment actually see some sort of ghostly reenactment of the original crash that happened 5 months earlier? We may never know. One of the officers involved in the discovery called it spine-chilling. When Strange But True returns, did Jackie Gleason see alien bodies during a tour of a secret facility given to him by President Nixon? That story is next. Our next strange but true story involves Jackie Gleason, famous for his crass character Ralph Cramden in the television series The Honeymooners. After a successful career as a stand-up comedian, Gleason was discovered in New York's Club 18 by no other than Jack Warner, who signed him to a Warner Brothers film contract for just $250 per week. It wouldn't be until 1951 when Gleason created his most popular character, the blustery New York bus driver Ralph Cramden. The show included sketches drawn from Gleason's harsh Brooklyn childhood and became known as The Honeymooners. Gleason died in 1987. Now, 29 years after his death, Jackie Gleason is a household name, and the characters played by him are legendary. Although he never spoke about it publicly, it was no secret among friends and family that Jackie Gleason was highly interested in the paranormal, especially UFOs and aliens. He was a staunch supporter of the Republican Party and eventually became very good friends with President Richard Nixon. Gleason and Nixon became very close. Nixon would often ditch his Secret Service agents and hang out with his friend. They both loved to play golf, and it was common to find the two of them knocking balls around on South Florida's country club courses. It was during a round of golf that Nixon expressed that he too had an interest in UFOs. Our story tonight takes us to Miami, Florida, 1973. Beverly McKittrick was Gleason's second wife. Beverly had been soliciting interviews to promote a book she was intending to write when she landed an interview with Esquire magazine to promote the upcoming book. During that interview, Beverly dropped a bombshell. She said that one night in February 1973, Gleason was unusually late getting home. She said he was overly excited and he appeared haggard. Worried, she questioned him about where he'd been, and next Beverly related that Jackie told her that he had been to Homestead Air Force Base in South Florida with his friend, President Nixon. He said that President Nixon had given him a special tour of a secret facility where he witnessed dead alien bodies. He told her that the aliens were in some sort of glass containers filled with a liquid preservative, and that the aliens were small and only about 2 feet tall. He said their heads were bald and they had large ears. When the story was published, Gleason was angry. Although the couple was already separated, Beverly said that Gleason was sour and very upset that she had made the story public. So much so that he cut off contact with her completely. Beverly felt bad and decided to never finish her book. In the years before Jackie Gleason's death, ufologist Larry Warren claims to have met with Gleason in New York. After loosening him up with a few drinks, he asked Gleason about the Homestead incident. Warren said that Gleason told him that on that night, Richard Nixon had arrived at Gleason's house alone in his private car. Nixon told Gleason that he wanted to show him something. Nixon continued to drive Gleason to Homestead Air Force Base. At the gate, a shocked security guard waved them through. They drove to a well-guarded building and walked in. Inside the building were a number of labs, but they eventually arrived at an inner chamber. Here, they found several containers that looked like, quote, glass-topped Coke freezers, unquote. Inside was what Gleason described as looking like mangled children, but upon closer examination, he noticed they were not human, and they actually looked quite old. After telling him the details of the visit, Gleason told Warren that he was very upset that the government would not share this information with the public. A woman sits down to watch TV. 42 years later, her body is found still sitting in front of that TV. Stay tuned. Zagreb, Croatia, 1966. Katica Karic last saw her neighbor in 1966. Hedviga Golik was 84 years old. She was seen talking to 2 men believed to be members of Hedviga's religious sect. Afterwards, she disappeared. Acquaintances remembered hearing her talking about taking a trip out of the country, so they just assumed she had gone away for a while. Several years later, in the 70s, she still hadn't returned. She was an introvert and a shut-in, and besides, neighbors could occasionally hear the TV through her open windows. Everybody knew she was a strange one, so most people thought nothing of it. Some claimed she was schizophrenic, and neighbors chipped in to pay her rent and her utilities for decades. Fellow tenants once considered breaking in and checking on her, but a strange message written on the door advised against it. The message, written in marker, was signed by the Commission for Census. Finally, in 1991, President of the Tenants Council wrote a letter to local police, asking them to investigate the apartment, but they refused. Several later memos were also ignored by local authorities. It wouldn't be until 2008 when 3 neighbors decided to break in. They weren't expecting to find the mummified corpse of Hedviga, but that's exactly what they found. Still sitting in front of her TV. Her eyes now just sunken, empty sockets, fixed in time on her TV for 42 years. Hedviga's demise remains a mystery, and her exact cause of death could never be determined. Was she murdered? Was it suicide? Or just a natural death from old age? We will never know. If you have a strange but true story that you would like us to consider for an upcoming episode of Strange But True, send us an email at strangebutTrueTV@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. That's all. Until next Saturday, I'm Stephen Steller for Strange But True.